Hello and welcome. This is my test drive for a conference and presentation on a Native Indigenous perspective on artificial intelligence. My name is Bridget Kimsey, and I'm happy to be here with you. So thank you for being here with me as I practice. I'm always open to questions or comments, discussions, so feel free to email me directly or just put a comment here in this YouTube discussion and I will answer it. So let's get started. So my name is Bridget and I am of both Lenape and Irish descent. I have been working inside of global Indigenous methods and Western scientific methods for 30 years in the fields of healthcare, research, writing, policy, and security. My training runs along the spectrum of human health, biology, chemistry, engineering, and physics. I work with different communities on various projects. I'm a published author, researcher, and restructurer. I'm a Master of Science degree candidate in the field of space studies and astronomy, with an interest in working on artificial intelligence at a PhD level. My professional goals are to continue to research, write, and work on projects in finding different ways of knowing in science, creation, and the nature of reality. Please feel free to visit me at my authors page on Amazon or my website. Below are 5 books that are currently published, and I'm always publishing more, so please come back and take a look. I start with our discussion on how do we, as the modern dominant culture, describe artificial intelligence, AI, in 2023 AD. I was lucky enough to visit the Boston Museum of Science. I was down in Boston for a meeting in February in 2023, and the definition on one of their displays is as follows. AI includes any technology where computers mimic human intelligence, often by determining patterns from huge amounts of data. AI is already impacting many aspects of our lives, and this technology can be improved by asking questions about where and how we use it. So how is AI currently being used in the modern dominant cultural landscape? Applications of artificial intelligence can be found with automobiles, business, education, finance, manufacturing, gaming, government, and healthcare. What are some pros and cons of current modern AI? And so I provided here just a short list. There are many of them in the public domain sector or non-public domain. And I won't take too long with this slide, but this is a modern dominant cultural interpretation and lens of some pros and cons. There is already a bias here of what is important to look at. What I gravitate to look at here is as a tool, AI can bring some efficiency, crunching large volumes of data, and leaning into mechanical advantages. My concern from this list focuses in on uncontrollability of AI, of course, ethics, but truly the impact on the human organism, physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, in community, and 7 generations ahead of impact on the human animal, which we all are. As important to note, the human animal is a biological animal of Earth, like other animals on Earth, and has not changed much for 18,000 years. Specific needs and requirements to stay healthy and functioning well. And in this, I do bring in my background as a healthcare provider for 30 years working in depth in multiple ways with the human animal. All right, just a brief look at pros and cons of future AI. And when I open to look at AI in the future in a public domain setting, again, from the bias I have described, I do see quite a bit focusing on capitalistic growth and the value of. As we see in this graph, 2016 to 2025, and here we are in 2023 AD. Putting that trend aside, we see it is predicted to really take off and already has begun to do so, as we are and can see some of these measurements markers being met already. All right, historical technology. So I will pull back here. Let's go back in time. Technology and innovation has been around for all of human history, truly. We can go deep here, but it is a good reminder that technology, advanced technology, innovation, expansion has been around for all of human history. Numbers can be debated, but I'm going to go with 300,000 years. And the complexity of technology is found, let us say, in modern archaeological digs, that as a native person often misses most of the data because it is being viewed from a westernized, colonial influenced lens. I feel often this is a point in my talking with those in the modern dominant culture that this is forgotten, lost, or just simply not aware. My tribe. So I will bring us to my tribe. I am a registered member of the Lenni Lenape Delaware Nation. Our original homelands date back 10,000 years ago on the mid-eastern seaboard of what is currently known as the United States of America. We lived on Lenapehoking and cared for ourselves, the land, all species, for about 10,000 years until being forcibly removed in the 1700s AD. Our current tribal headquarters are in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Now, professor and archaeologist Herbert Kraft and his family dedicated their lives to studying the Lenape. With these slides, I'd like to briefly touch on how technology was developed, changed, integrated, with the focus being on health of the individual, health of the tribe, health of the habitat, stewardship of the land, stewardship of all species, both seen and not seen. For the Lenape, the seen and not seen, all dimensions flow in and out of each other. All is viewed as sacred. There is no separation. I continue here, and I am hoping to show how different changes and advancements and ways of clothing, starting in with agriculture, tools, technology, is shifting and changing through time. The tribe is a living organism and document, as you will. And there are many layers, constraints, and ways of operating that are highly involved. There is much discussion to determine what new way seen by another, let's say in a journeying session, or that comes from the plant world, or that comes from trial and error, that is then discussed extensively by the tribe. The implications of new ways are examined closely with metrics in, is it health-giving? How does it look 7 generations ahead? How does it impact our habitat? How does it impact other species? There is much debate. I'd like to note that this process is very different than what I have observed in the current, what is referred to as the New Age movement, or in instances of cultural appropriation from my tribe, gleaning what works and is seen by modern others from a westernized, colonized lens, whether understood as such or not. This is, in fact, the scientific method in action, and how I was trained as a medicine person, dimensional mediator, and knowledge bearer, to never follow one's subjective experience ever, or thoughts, but instead to listen to, observe closely how it works in nature, repeating itself, inclusive of the human animal. Here is a tiny slide of a small amount of some of the most amazing native indigenous technologies. To note, nothing is created without purpose. Art, science, purpose, all serve purpose and work together. This is something, again, lost on most Western colonized minds and research. Much data is not correctly understood nor translated. I'd say about 90% is lost to most westernized human animals. It is highly advanced. For example, When one is ill, determined in full what the illness is by a tribal medicine person / scientist. Part of their healing process might be in weaving a certain pattern in a rug or basket over a certain prescribed time measurement. This process of weaving a certain specific pattern or code helps rewire the brain, which relates to different organs. A fact starting to come to light in modern day imaging done in neuroscientific studies in ambulatory settings. To note, most tribes do not share the deep wealth of work they have accrued over thousands of years with those outside of their tribe anymore, due to genocide, abuse, and misuse and harm that has been done to tribes and or the information given. For example, 40% of modern pharmaceuticals come from indigenous knowledge, creating a $1 trillion industry while not including and putting down or killing indigenous people, their ways, their habitats, and their very livelihoods. Now, there are many examples of native indigenous artificial intelligence. Like all technology, AI has been with humanity since our beginning. I've chosen here today to look at animal traps. Again, this could be up for debate, but not really. I am looking at the actual word, artificial intelligence, creating a tool that is following what the individual and tribe needs. For example, here in this animal trap, there is a way to effectively, efficiently, and safely catch animals in an artificial construct of the human's design, having compressed huge amounts of data from nature of what might work and what might not work. Instead of hunting down said animal, they are creating a tool that uses intelligence in creation, application, and meeting the target wish for. I want to emphasize the process of development of such a tool is embedded and rooted in a health-promoting society and matrix that is specific in what metrics it deems as safe and appropriate and being a good steward for themselves and for all of nature. In this example of said animal traps, it was and is never undertaken casually. So then, what is the intersecting point of AI for global indigenous scientific methods and AI found in modern Western scientific methods? I'd like to first pull up this image of Manhattan in the current United States. New York City, Manhattan, is a Lenape word that means place that is an island. Here is an image of how Manhattan looked for 10,000 years. And here is how it has developed over the last 400 years. I'm looking at objective data. How is the health of the land? How is the health of the water, the air, the health of all animals, including the human animal? How does the human animal feel in community, in purpose? How does their emotional life and mental life feel? Do they feel valued and seen and cared for? I could go on, but these two very different approaches to life and what these two lineages value are different. So the shaping of their tools are going to be different. The tool creation is reflective of the human animal living and operating in the climate they have created. Math, one of my favorite topics, math, physics, geometry, equations. Math is the universal language. Math is in all of nature we see on Earth. Code and equations are how I work in all of my abilities. Let me take healthcare as an example. If someone comes to me with an illness, that illness is the absolute correct outcome for the equation they find themselves in. It is perfection. If the person has an objective for healing, then my inquiry will be looking at how the equation is constructed on multiple fronts and platforms and dimensions to land the person where they are. I will see what wiggle room we have and where, and if I am the best or the complementary or not helpful person for them to work with. Again, if their objective is healing, it might be something else. Either way, there can be no bias, zero bias, no subjectivity in how I work. The focus is only on the tenets of nature, earth, and how the universe operates, math, physics, and equations. Now, I can still have compassion and care and emotions. They do have a role, but I am always in service to reality, nature, and truths that are much older than the human species. And I know this. I am from a culture that knows this and honors this. To note, all humans today are living here 300,000 years in the future because their rooted global indigenous ancestors, all of them, operated in a manner similarly as I have just described. What many modern humans think of as, oh, that's the human condition, for human animals is not what has been known or developed for thousands of years by indigenous ancestors. The mind, the body were never meant to be separated. And even if we go back to Hippocrates, he never advocated for the mind and body to be separated. So I'm not sure exactly what is happening on our earth in our global construct of society at this point. I have my own knowledge of how this separation has occurred from a life based in nature and science, and where it has gone based on other metrics, such as value of productivity, wealth, power, what we now see pervading globally. But that is better suited and discussed another time, and is something I do get into in other discussions and books I have written. The point today here, though, is we, the global modern human collective, have a living manual of how AI has worked well and has been technologically advanced, efficient, effective, humane, and safe for all. How then do we do this? Here I present a slide of some current ideas that are being implemented for a better way to start to work with creation and the use of AI. And as we look at them, these are good questions and considerations, mindful of impacts on society, collaboration, inclusivity, and ethics. But let us go a step further. AI is currently being created in a human-centric model. What does this mean? If a human animal and their community has gotten away from basic principles and following the ways of Earth and what has worked, the creating of a tool that is human-centric will reinforce the same. The tool will highlight the shadow elements of said human, the diseased parts. This means that programmers are creating a tool that is focused on the variations of each human creating it. The tool will carry whatever thoughts, energy, challenges, shadow aspects, dark aspects, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and even light aspects of the programmer that he or she carries. Like giving birth to a child, the apple does not fall far from the tree and will highlight any learnings the programmer needs to see or hear, both good and bad, for themselves. For this is how nature works. It's just an example, shadow aspect. I also do come to thinking about that awareness that most humans have 5% of availability of their awareness of who they are in their conscious mind. 95% of us live with that subconscious, unconscious that is driving us. It's similar in the universe with 5% of known, I believe, baryonic matter, and you have that 95% of non-baryonic matter of the subconscious, unconscious, dark matter, dark energy. We may not be able to see it or fully understand it, but that dark matter and dark energy also has gravitational pull and make changes for us in our universe. And it is the same for the human, for the universe and the human are all part of nature. All right. So to go back to indigenous crafted AI, is to go back to a nature, earth-based centric tenets for creation. What might be a more sound approach is to look to nature to create a tool, such as AI, that is truly supportive from an earth-observing, earth-centric approach to repair, heal, learn from, to be mindful in approach and honest with self as programmer. It is listening, learning, and programming with the tenets found in nature. This gets out of bias and actually can become a technological aid and support for humans as we move along on our journey, both on Earth, in the universe, as we become an interplanetary species. But we are a young species of Earth and will always be of the Earth for quite some time in the future. It is best to be humble and draw close to Earth tenets over and over again. This can be achieved in a few ways, whether own learning, community learning, looking deeper into our historical collective, and or mending bridges with Indigenous cultures and translating correctly with Indigenous research methods, Indigenous research scientific methods, what they have learned works and does not work. There are many options. I like this one. This is a nature-based AI as shown by how sunflowers follow the sun. So what can be seen in future prediction as AI currently stands as a human-centric creation in a modern dominant culture that has proven with many metrics to be fundamentally divorcing itself from the close to 300,000 years legacy of being Earth-centric. Modern current AI is a human-centric model. On the line here is our energy, our life force, and our heart. In the human animal, the heart is 1,000 times electromagnetically stronger than the brain. Humans have energy from the heart, from the brain, all through our being flowing in and around us. The human animal is designed to interact with living organisms in certain ways. It impacts them and it impacts us. It is a relationship. It is an exchange of information. Even in the setting up of animal traps that I have used as an example here and such, a traditional use of AI, we are still interfacing with a construct that is brimming with life, atoms, and molecules. So I've just shown pictures, examples that when you add in the earth between the creation of AI and the human, you might get something a bit more supportive of the health of the earth and the human species that is still pretty young on our planet. When we interact with anything, it impacts all parties. It is a relationship. Now, when you hold a phone or a piece of AI equipment, you are interfacing with this device. Your energy is going into it and around it. It learns from you and you learn from it. Yes, it is a machine. How does this over time impact the human animal physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically? What are the results of humans bonding with AI in this manner? Programmers make it more human, familiar, away from a tool, but familiar, a friend even, developing emotions for how does this impact a human's mind, nervous system, ability to interact with non-AI matter? What is happening to the human being over time? What are the results of humans bonding with AI in this matter? Without stabilizing factors or an approach to truly understand AI as a non-life form tool, it begins to take on a life of its own, creating a few things: more vulnerable humans, ability increasing of outside attacks, ability increasing of mind control and not thinking for ourselves as individuals. There is the slow but steady wrapping around of enslavement of the human animal, being put into a cage and unable to cultivate and flow through the ins and outs of learning about her or himself and squashing growth. This picture makes me so sad. really does. People have real attachments and love and strong emotions to their devices, computers, robots, AI machines. We see this all the time in the media. This energy, this prana, this chi, this hado, these particles of energy is flowing along the device, flowing along networks to many, and it's flowing through space and time, wrapping around and trapping people inside. People know this at some level and end up grumpy and at war in themselves because the machine gives them nothing real. It might promise something real, but the human organism knows it is not real. And it squashes their growth and life as a human. They miss out on the richness of true life and become enslaved. There is an addiction component, separated more from themselves and more from community and more from life, that is from and of the earth and earth-centric creation. The way the chemicals flow in the brain, an addiction component starts in. We already see this now with video games and technology. I think this is something that came up for sure during COVID. AI currently asks and responds to humans in a way that requires the human to get more robotic in their own voice and tone, often a grooming. What will happen to humans in this landscape? Can we see predictable patterns already starting? If AI programming continues to not examine what is currently happening to humans, vulnerabilities already there, how far we have come from our earth-based approach and away from our very need and nature as human animals, and programs AI to be human-centric. A new species is being created that is going to reflect the faults we currently carry that are not being addressed in the modern dominant culture that extends from a human-centric and colonialized point of view. Some countries have worked through this or are trying to work through this, and some, unfortunately, have no desire or simply are not. AI could be a game changer for us all. And will AI control us? And I come back to that 5% known and 95% unknown. How is it already impacting us, all of us? Even those like myself that have a history and rich upbringing inside of my own culture and in Native and Indigenous principles, how is it impacting me? Because 95% is the great mystery that is still uncovering, but it is still driving me. So what are safety components? If we go from creating an earth-centric model, what are safety components we can put in place? We can go back to nature again to take a look. Starting with, as mentioned, the earth-centric model, we take another step, for example, in following nature again. Safety components for a potentially necessary but problematic piece of AI cannot be placed in the AI itself. They cannot be in the AI equipment. Like with nature, a strong plant medicine of poison ivy has jewelweed growing next to it. If an issue gets out of hand with poison ivy, then not in the poison ivy do you look for resolution. You look to a separate piece that the earth crafted, such as jewelweed, to be the salve and bring balance back. Potential problematic AI piece needs a counter completely removed and crafted differently nearby. This is just another example of many when we look at AI from an earth-centric tool to support humans. then changing the whole human species and handing over control of the human species to a company, a select few, or an unknown other. Finally, I come back to what are we really currently doing with AI? What are our objectives with it? Are we happier? How are our global health and security metrics on many fronts improving? I come back again that we are animals, always, forever, and have not changed much biologically in the last 18,000 years. Our needs are very straightforward, and life is a journey of ups and downs where the human animal is exploring death, suffering, lessons, joy, love. These are things we are working on. How does any tool support this or not support this? I'll highlight again my personal experiences in healthcare. Many in the current modern dominant culture construct realities to protect, insulate, control, cut off from nature and our own human nature and our own growth, creating systems that perpetuate this, as well as systems that harm, focused on destruction, imbalance, slavery, and securing of greater power and wealth for a few, to the own harm of cellular tissue and organs, including the brain and heart, working properly. How can AI help or harm what is going on right now? Truly taking an honest look. A final note I have, in addition, nature is part of our own exploration, whether we choose to ignore it or not. I've noticed this in healthcare, working in bacteria and viruses for 30 years. As we have gone further with technology and interfacing pieces of tech here on Earth and in low Earth orbit satellites, all connected and talking to each other, this is now part of nature. These pathogens now have shifted to working collaboratively, like they are witnessing what our tech is doing. It is not science fiction. It makes perfect sense when you really think about it. How will AI impact nature and how nature operates, how bugs operate, how leaves and plants and trees operate? What will nature learn from the AI we are introducing? In multiple ways, how does our habitat shift? How does AI impact nature as it crawls through it, seen and unseen? Native and Indigenous elders have long discussed this in going forth with any technology they are figuring on, from hunting tools to going from nomadic to incorporating some farming, to how the language is used, orally, or does it start to be written down? It goes on. Elders are looking at, and for the tribe is looking at, how does this impact 7 generations ahead? There's much to consider. We are all alive and here because of what our collective Indigenous elders decided for or against over and over and over again. Compare colonial thinking and non-colonialized thinking. I'm not judging. How do they compare? How are they sustainable for the human animal? How can we now make wise mind choices regarding any technology and regarding AI? What metrics or values are we using? This has already begun to happen in looking how to manage forest fires, water scarcity, farming techniques, and in healthcare. Going back to our collective Indigenous roots because it is what has worked. But also there are now crises and needs, and the pure colonial wrapping around is not working. How can different lenses, angles, sensing methodologies work here for better outcomes? How can complex algorithms already be seen in tools that have shaped humans? Thinking of global Indigenous communities, look at algorithms in labyrinths, in Navajo weaving rugs, in basket weaving. This has been happening for a very long time. Many of these algorithms were created to help heal to help the human animal find his path, to help a certain season or the earth, to help in some such situation that honored how the human animal operates as part of nature and the earth, and to give good stewardship to the earth, our home. Code isn't everything. Math is the universal language throughout our universe and on earth in all of nature. Math, code, algorithms, patterns. Code in STEM is an all Indigenous art and ceremony, which is the science and the fabric that holds humans together and has held them together for thousands of years, evolving and moving and mathematically computing what comes next with Earth doing the same. AI, from a human-centric model, embeds as well. What are we creating? What are we creating that will change us and our homes and our planet? Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, I could go on with about 100 different points, but I at least wanted to bring up 3 central ones. The Earth-centric model, the importance of how it impacts us, how it impacts nature, and, well, I could go on, but I'll stop. Thank you again for joining me. And if I don't see you at the Mozilla Festival, hopefully I will see you another time. Please be in touch, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.